Welcome to Stalking the Pantry with Hal, a series of articles, videos, and other ramblings to provide information and resources to help everyone to be better prepared, and hopefully have some fun along the way. And so now I'd like to go ahead and demonstrate another gadget that I think is a very useful one, especially if you're doing a lot of apples. I thought it might be fun today to share one of the really useful tools I've come across. Now, some of you may be familiar with this. It's a combination apple peeler, corer, and slicer. Now, these have been around for ages. I remember my grandmother had one that was attached to the edge of the big butcher block with a screw type of arrangement. This has one of these vacuum bases that really works well. So the whole idea of it is that you pull it back, you put the apple on, and then it cranks in. And we'll demonstrate that in a moment. But at the same time, it goes through and first it peels it, and then as it's pushing it through here and coring it, it's slicing it into nice spiral slices. This will also work for potatoes to make kind of a curly fry kind of potato. It helps to add a little water onto the vacuum base. This moves, so you can pull it back. And once you get started, you kind of have to keep it going. And what we're going to do is trim this up, and we need 5 cups of apple slices because we're going to make a couple of pints of apple pie filling for freezing that you can use to make apple pie at any time. So sometimes, because of different shapes of the apples, it requires a little bit of extra trimming, and sometimes when it starts it doesn't take the peel off as well, but that's okay because that makes snacks for later. Now, a lot of people will try to get the core off by pulling it back, and I've seen these blades bent that way, so I just like to use a fork. And so now I'm going to go get the apples that have been being held in a solution of lemon juice and water so that they would not brown, and we'll add these to it, and then we will cook ourselves up a couple of pints of apple pie filling for freezing for later. All right, so here are the 5 cups of apple slices that we made earlier and finished off just now. Don't worry, I've washed my hands so much today that... So they go in. Now, this is an induction burner. If you're not familiar with those and you find yourself needing what they call a 5th burner, an extra burner, I strongly recommend you look into induction burners. They work on magnetism, and so all the cookware you need have to have a lot of iron in it. And so most of these, they do stainless steel, which won't quite work. But down here in the bottom, in this layer, they put in a plate of iron. And so when the magnetism is turned on, it heats it. The thing that's really great about induction burners is they're instantaneous. Now, whatever heat's gone into it will stay, but if you've got a rolling boil and you need to stop it very quickly, you just turn it off and it will drop very quickly. It also heats up a lot faster. So I'm turning this on, medium heat. And so we're going to be using Pomona's pectin, which works very well. And so rather than having to use an awful lot of sugar, the Pomona's pectin sets up with calcium water. And it's a powder that we mix ahead of time with water. And we also put in a little bit of lemon juice. And this is the calcium water and the lemon juice. And then we bring that up to a boil. And we have cinnamon and nutmeg. And they go in at the beginning here so that the spices get a chance to meld with the cooking apples. And then we let it cook for about 3 or 4 minutes. When it's cooked and the apples have softened up a little bit and are heated all the way through, we're going to be adding the sugar, which is about 1/3 of what's used in other recipes. And we're also going to be adding the pectin. Now, pectin acts an awful lot like, if you're familiar with cornstarch, the way if you just throw it into water, it clumps up. Same thing will happen with the pectin. But if you take the amount of pectin you're going to use and mix it with whatever the sweetener is, and it can be sugar, it can be honey, it could be agave, it could be almost anything that you like, including artificial sweeteners. But for some reason, when you disperse the pectin molecules amongst the other molecules, they don't clot up. So we've got that nice and thoroughly mixed. Just to mention, if you hadn't seen the earlier video, the Pomona's pectin comes in boxes. You can also order it in bulk by the pound. But it comes with the pectin, which is that beige, and then a white powder. And you mix a 1/2 teaspoon of the calcium water, or calcium with water, and you can store it in a refrigerator. As long as these things are well sealed in jars or something, you can keep the pectin and the calcium water almost forever. And every package comes with a recipe guide for adapting your recipes to using the Pomona's pectin. So as I was mentioning earlier, we're in the beginning of May, and pretty soon we're going to be starting to see fresh farm produce. And so many people have taken up gardening during this time that there's going to be a lot of call for canning supplies and for doing some canning. And we're hoping that by June we'll be able to hold our classes again. But at this point, the only activity that the Center for Food Preservation Arts is being permitted to do is work in kitchens that are not being used for 24/7 like they usually are, and make the jams, jellies, and applesauces for food banks and feeding ministries. But instead of having 5 to 10 people working, the maximum we have is 3, so that we're pretty far apart. But once that is thoroughly heated, which it is, we go ahead and add the pectin sugar. I don't know if you can see this, but it's starting to gel up, and it's got a nice coating on it. And seeing it's starting to do what they call sheeting. It's starting to stick together the way you would with a jam, jelly. And I'm getting a face full of the cinnamon smell. Cinnamon and nutmeg. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last session, the earlier session, but one like this, one of these, and they have a really unique name. this canning ladle is named a canning ladle. But a number of years somebody sent me one, and it was, to me, very highly priced at that point. But it has definitely come down in price. And what I like about it is that it has pouring on all three areas, and it has its own hanger. But it's light, and it's basically was designed for canning. Now, if we were going to be canning this, we'd have a water bath canner, and you'd want to have headroom, space up on top, so that the air could come out of it. But we're going to be freezing these, so we're going to want to leave extra headroom. So while we might fill to about here, if we're water bath canning, we're going to fill it down to the shoulder of the jar so that there's plenty of room for expansion. Because there's nothing worse than putting in a lot of work, freezing something, going and opening it, and it's blown up. Now, if we were water bath canning, we would have to come really close to having the exact headroom. Since we're freezing this as long as it's below. So this would make, it's really close. Let's see, grab that one more little piece there. Oh yeah, that makes all the difference. But this, between these two, should be sufficient to make a regular size pie. And everything has been washed and sterilized ahead of time. And so we're just going to let it cool till it's about room temperature and then put it in the freezer. And so as I said, at the very end here, we'll post some links, like a direct link to our article on freezing eggs, a couple of other great articles that talk about all the different techniques for freezing things. And hopefully you'll visit our blog page and also our Facebook page where we post all different kinds of recipes, because we're going to have 4 different recipes that you can make with frozen apples. Applesauce, apple butter, apple pie jam, and then the apple pie filling. So thank you for joining, and hope to see you in a few weeks. Thank you for spending some time with us as we explore preserving food at home. If you'd like more information about the Center for Food Preservation Arts, visit our website at preservefoods.blogspot.com. You can also find more videos on our YouTube channel, and please like us on Facebook. There are links at the end of this video, but also in the comments section. So please join us in our next virtual canning party as we continue stocking the pantry.